You ever come home from a long weekend thinking all you'll need is a cold beer and maybe a nap only to walk straight into a disaster you couldn't even make up? That's what happened to me the day my neighbor, Lydia Monroe, the self-declared queen of the HOA, cut through my reinforced livestock fence like it was ribbon on a gift box and through what she proudly called a community appreciation gala. Right on my private property. Now I know what you're thinking. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she didn't realize it was private land. I wish. I've got security cam footage of her, bolt cutters in one hand, champagne flute in the other, giggling like she was opening the gates of Versailles. She waved her guests through the gap in the fence like royalty, and none of them had a clue they were stepping into a restricted enclosure meant to keep 3 professionally trained bulls from wandering out into chaos. See, I don't keep just any bulls. These aren't the kind you see on a dusty pasture chewing grass. These boys, Diesel, Onyx, and Bruiser, are trained security animals, certified under a federal livestock protection program. Diesel was trained in riot control scenarios. Onyx had experience with crowd diffusion drills on a military base. And Bruiser, well, he's called Bruiser for a reason. He barely tolerates me, and I raised him. The fence Lydia sliced through wasn't decorative. It was electrified, triple-gated, and backed up by an emergency power system. Not for show, because one slip-up, one loud noise, or a kid running the wrong direction. That's all it would take. And she had no idea none of that by inviting 30-some party guests, kids included, onto my land with EDM music blaring and wine flowing. She was setting the stage for a stampede. I was still in my barn office when I saw it happen on camera. A little boy couldn't have been older than 7 chased a balloon right toward the inner gate. My heart nearly stopped. That gate was secured, sure, but it's a reaction zone. If it rattles or if someone climbs it, the bulls think it's a drill. They're trained to respond to noise, to motion, to threat. I ran. Didn't call the sheriff. Didn't text a soul. Just bolted straight for the enclosure. By the time I got close, Diesel was already at the outer gate, ears perked, muscles tight, nostrils flaring like a freight train warming up. Tango and Bruiser were pacing behind him, snorting and twitching. The electricity in the air wasn't just from the fancy, it was coming off those bulls. They knew something was wrong. What I didn't know, until I checked the control panel, was that the emergency power grid had been hijacked. Someone, probably Lydia's DJ, had plugged into it, overloaded the system, and cut power to the fence. It was dead. The only thing holding Diesel back now was a mechanical latch and about 5 feet of personal restraint. When I got to the field, Diesel had already nudged through. He wasn't charging. Not yet. He was just standing there, watching. Had turned toward the party like he was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Guests were clinking glasses, laughing. Someone had set up a photo booth. Lydia stood in the middle of it all, posing with 2 realtors and a city council member like she was unveiling a public park on my land. I blew the whistle. High-pitched, sharp. Diesel froze. I whistled again, this time lower and longer. Bruiser and Onyx emerged behind him, forming their trained triangle pattern, alert but calm. That was good. I still had control barely. But then Lydia grabbed the DJ mic and sighed on record. Everyone calm down. It's part of the show. Our dear neighbor brought out his bulls for fun. I was still standing at the edge of the field, and when I heard that, I swear my brain just shut off for a second. I watched a little girl try to pet Diesel like he was a pony at a petting zoo. That's when he snorted, pawed the ground, and tipped over the entire champagne tower with one powerful headbutt. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Lydia slipped in barbecue sauce and fell face first into her own buffet table. And that's when I stepped forward slow, steady, blew the whistle 3 times, and tapped Diesel gently on the flank. He turned. Bruiser and Onyx followed. And I gave Lydia the longest stare I've ever given another human being. You cut my fence, I said, voice low. You trespassed. You endangered children. And you're lucky these bulls listen to me more than you respect other people's boundaries. I walked the bulls back in total silence, but I knew one thing. Lydia Monroe wasn't going down without making noise. Next day, I get a letter official HOA complaint signed by Lydia accusing me of creating an unsafe environment. She used phrases like aggressive livestock and traumatic emotional distress. Claimed her guests mistook Diesel for a lawn ornament. I nearly choked on my coffee. I took every ounce of footage I had, walked into the HOA office with my training licenses, livestock certifications, and highlighted agricultural property law, and handed it over to their stunned receptionist. The video went viral overnight. Someone from the party filmed the whole champagne crash and uploaded it with dramatic music and slow-motion effects. Internet named her Fence Cutter Felicia and Champagne Stampede Queen. Comment sections roasted her like it was a national holiday. But Lydia didn't back down. She filed bogus insurance claims, tried to have me charged with psychological harassment, and even delivered a fake lawsuit in a box of shredded HOA newsletters. My sheriff buddy, Deputy Harris, called me laughing. She called the bulls a threat to national stability, he said. I told her we trust your animals more than half the town. That's when I decided if she wanted to put a spotlight on me, fine, I'd take the stage. I organized a public bull safety demonstration, called it the Bull Protocol, invited local press, school teachers, council members, even HOA board members. People showed up by the dozens. I wore my old rodeo vest, stood in the center of the field, and gave a single whistle. Diesel walked to a marked line. Bruiser and Onyx flanked him. Together, they moved like soldiers, disciplined, elegant. Then I showed them performing drills, formation changes, threat assessments, restraint maneuvers around a mock intruder mannequin. Not one mistake. When I finished, the crowd erupted. Kids took selfies. Council members asked for flyers. The local news anchor called Diesel the classiest bull in America. Lydia stood at the back in oversized sunglasses, arms crossed, face stone cold. She didn't clap. She just left. But I wasn't done. At the end of the event, I stepped up to the mic and said, "Today wouldn't be possible without one very enthusiastic community member. So, in honor of her contributions, we've named the new bull training field the Lydia Containment Zone." The crowd lost it. It wasn't cruel, it was earned. And from that day on, a wooden sign stood by my pasture with that name carved into it. People came by just to take pictures. Lydia stopped showing up at HOA meetings. She lost her seat, her influence, and most of her clients. But a few weeks later, she came to my gate. No cameras, no drama, just stood there with her arms folded, looking like she was chewing glass. "I came to talk," she said, "not to argue. I didn't think it'd all spiral like this." I leaned on the fence. "What are you here for, an apology or damage control?" "Both, I guess," she sighed. "I was wrong. About the party, the fence, all of it. I didn't expect people to turn on me." I nodded slowly. "That's the thing about people, Lydia. They eventually get tired of being stepped on." She didn't say much after that. Just turned and walked away, quieter than she'd ever been. Since then, life's gone back to normal. I host bull safety seminars twice a month. My property's now a community asset, not a target. And Diesel? He naps by the porch like none of it ever happened. But every now and then, I see someone pull over near the wooden sign, take a picture, and smile. A reminder, I guess, that sometimes the best way to shut down a party is with a whistle, a little patience, and 3,000 pounds of poetic justice. If you've ever had a run-in with a neighbor who thought the rules didn't apply to them, or if you've got thoughts about personal boundaries, property rights, or just how far is too far, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your stories. And hey, maybe don't cut fences next time. Not unless you're ready to meet the bulls.